Pay the Price. Second Chance Enemies to Lovers' Romance. Written by Ash Coley. Narrated by Araceli Gote. For Riley, my reason for everything I do. For every person who loves a little biting and blood in their books, this is for you. Author's Note. Please be aware that this book contains content that not all readers may find enjoyable, such as biting, blood, hair pulling, choking, domestic violence, elements of child abuse, and children in foster care. If you have any questions before, during, or after reading this book, please do not hesitate to reach out to me at authorashcoley@gmail.com. Thank you, and happy reading. Chapter 1. Prologue. Dax.
A frown pulled at my lips as I watched the other kids run around on the playground, squealing happily. I didn't like playing with the other kids. They were so wild, and I wasn't. My new foster mom said I didn't know how to be happy. Something about me being content in my misery. I overheard her telling it to the lady that came out once a week to talk to me. That lady said she wanted to be my friend, but I didn't believe her. Friends didn't carry around briefcases and take notes when they talked to me. I might have only been in 5th grade, but I wasn't a stupid boy. Even the social workers always told my foster parents I was bright for my age. But my being bright wasn't enough for potential parents that wanted to adopt kids like me. I'd been awarded the state since I was 2. My parents didn't want me, but the state wouldn't take away their rights. I overheard that too. They were hoping my parents might one day get better and change their minds. But I knew they wouldn't. I was too different. Strange. That was the word they always used. I didn't think I was strange. I just thought everyone else was stupid. And my new foster mom hated that word. In fact, last night she washed my mouth out with dish soap when I'd called another boy that word. But he was stupid. He put ants in a container thinking they would live without oxygen, and then cried like a stupid baby when he went to check on them and none of them were alive. Stupid. But I was the one in the wrong, not the idiot who killed dozens of little innocent ants. I rolled my eyes when a girl across the playground with blonde pigtails suddenly tripped and fell, cutting her hands on the wood chips covering the ground. She instantly began to cry, blood trickling down her hands. All her little friends began to swarm around her, and I watched Miss Manson, our teacher, run over to check her out. She would probably go to the nurse. It wasn't even that deep. I didn't even know why she was crying. Girls cry over the stupidest things, I muttered, stabbing my stick into the ground. The wood sliced my palm, making me bleed, but I barely felt it. Pain wasn't really a concept for me. It freaked all the adults out.
No they don't.
A girl suddenly snipped from above me. I looked up in surprise. I thought I was alone. When had she snuck up on me? She was wearing blue jeans that were loose on her legs and a shirt that was a couple of sizes too big for her. Her hair, the brown so dark it was almost black, was in a ponytail so messy, little pieces and bumps were sticking up here and there. There was a bruise on her jaw right beside her chin, and anger glimmered in her eyes as dark as her hair. It's not nice to sneak up on people, I told her, looking away, staring down at the stick I'd stab into the ground. And she scoffed.
It's also not nice to say what you did about girls, she barked,
surprising me. I looked up again. No one ever interacted with me. What do you want? I rudely asked her. I wanted her to go away. I didn't like people, and I liked this girl even less, which was saying something.
I was going to ask if you wanted a friend,
she said, putting her hand on her bony hip and popping it out just like every other sassy, annoying girl I'd ever known.
But I think you're meant to be a loner. You're so mean,
she hissed. I snorted. I'm mean? I asked her. I was talking to myself. You interrupted my conversation.
Oh, so you're crazy too?
She retorted. I couldn't help it. I laughed. I never got anyone to argue with me like this. By that point in the conversation, They were normally in tears and crying to the nearest adult that I was a big meanie. But this girl wasn't going anywhere. I like you, I bluntly told her. She blinked at me, her mouth opening and then shutting, like she didn't know what to say to that. I want to be your friend. She cocked her head to the side, dropping her hand from her hip. I noticed her nails were broken and chipped, and one of them looked like it had recently stopped bleeding.
Do you always just stare at people, weirdo?
She asked me. I snorted. We have eyes for a reason, I told her. She huffed and dropped to the ground to sit next to me, crossing her legs. She placed her hands in her lap, frowning at the blonde girl as she was led inside the school, still crying about how much her hands hurt. I shook my head and pulled my stick out of the ground.
I don't cry about stupid things, the girl next to me randomly said, drawing my eyes back to her.
I cocked my head to the side. So if you felt like she did, you wouldn't cry? She shook her head.
I'd yell instead. Crying is for babies, and Daddy said I'm not allowed to cry.
She shrugged.
What would you do?
I showed her my hand where the stick I'd been playing with had slowly been making me bleed more and more. I hadn't noticed it. Pain didn't bother me. I don't do anything, I told her. She smiled at me, not disturbed like so many other adults. What's your name?
Kit Ridley,
she said, holding her hand out for me to shake.
What's yours, weirdo?
I scowled at her, but put my non-bloody hand in hers, shaking it. Dax Fletcher. Her smile widened.
I'm going to keep calling you weirdo, Dax.
I rolled my eyes. Whatever, kitty, I mocked. That time, she was the one that looked annoyed, and it made me smile, which was a very strange feeling, and I wasn't sure if I liked it or not.
Chapter 2. Pretty Womaning. Dax. Oh my fucking god, you fucking weirdo.
Cat hissed, still calling me that fucking name years later. Her eyes were wide, but she rolled her lips into her mouth, trying to contain her laughter as her hand came up to cover her nose.
Are you seriously fucking pretty womaning the principal?
She hissed, before she burst into a fit of giggles. Kat and I had ditched third period, which was our last class before lunch, so we could pull our senior prank. She and I were constantly in trouble, especially after her mom sort of went MIA on her 18th birthday, and her dad got arrested on the same fucking day. I'd been coming to pick her up to take her to go do something, only to pull up and find her dad getting hauled off in cuffs. But the bruises that used to pop up on her skin, bruises she always had some weird-ass excuse for, stopped popping up once he was behind bars. I'd always known what was going on, but if there was one thing to know about Kit, it was that she didn't want people barging in on her shit. She respected my boundaries as long as I respected hers, and though it was damn hard to keep my nose out of the business of the only person I gave a damn about in this world, well, except for the baby I unexpectedly had on the fucking way, I managed to do it. Didn't mean it was easy, though. Kitty, I said, arching a brow at her. If you don't stop your fucking obnoxious laughing, someone's going to catch us before we can even do this. She snorted and then rolled her lips into her mouth. I shook my head and lifted the first 5-gallon bucket of raw fish out of the back of my truck. I paid a guy I knew to pick up 2 5-gallon buckets worth for me. It was going to be the best senior prank yet, and I couldn't fucking wait, even if it might land both me and Kit in a shit ton of trouble. No one expected less from either of us anyway. I was the goddamn king in this school. I'd gone from being the loner kid to never getting a moment's worth of peace after I failed out in 8th grade. No one cared anymore that I was still basically a nerd. Now, I was just a hot nerd with muscles and a body to die for. And a dick worthy of worship all by itself. Couldn't forget that one. Which was one of the reasons my dumbass currently had a baby girl on the damn way. Kit had slapped the shit out of me when I came to her, freaking out. And she yelled at me for being the biggest, smart dumbass she'd ever met in her life. Then, in true Kit fashion, she sat me down and helped me work through the mess in my head. I was using the money I earned from selling drugs to help pay for things for Paisley, the baby girl I was expecting. Erica, the girl I'd knocked up, was 7 months pregnant. She and Kit absolutely detested each other, and honestly, I kinda hated Erica too. She'd been a good lay. I remember at least that much from that drunken night. but she was stage 5 clingy and constantly fucking needing something. Unless it had to do with Paisley, I ignored her. It drove her fucking nuts.
"Oh shit, that reeks,"
Kat said, gagging. She stepped back, pinching her nose now. It was almost enough to make me laugh. I rolled my eyes at her. "Anyone ever told you how damn obnoxious you are?" I asked, cutting her the side eye that I knew she hated. She said it made me look condescending. She narrowed her eyes at me.
"Why the fuck are we even friends?"
I bit back a laugh, shaking my head. To this day, Kit was the only person who was capable of making me laugh or smile. I had no idea how she did it and stopped trying to figure it out by 7th grade. It was just one of those things that just was what it was. Laughing and smiling was still strange since I really didn't do it much, but I'd just gotten used to the strangeness at this point. And because no one else likes you, Kitty. It wasn't exactly a lie, but I also knew it took a lot to hurt this girl's feelings. She had fucking armor surrounding her that the military would be jealous of. She was rude, blunt, and callous. Even the teachers avoided asking her questions because she just spoke whatever was on her mind. And she had a way of saying things that just seemed to piss off the general population, even if she wasn't trying to. I liked it. But then again, it'd been established when I was just a kid that I wasn't normal. Normal was overrated anyway. Kit rolled her eyes at me.
"If I wanted people to like me, weirdo, I'd be just like every other person here. No, thank you."
That time, I smiled. Then I dumped the fish through the sunroof of the principal's car. He'd been dumb enough to leave it open today. I was getting into his car either way, but he made my job so much easier.
"Jesus Christ,"
Kit gagged, and I snorted out a laugh. I quickly snatched the second bucket full of fish out of the back of my truck and poured it inside too, before Kit could fucking vomit everywhere. And she would. She might have been made of steel, but her stomach was weak as fuck. I quickly jumped into my truck, and Kit did the same. I left the school property to get rid of the empty buckets. Kit scrunched up her nose and rolled down the window before we even hit the highway.
"You need a fucking shower, weirdo."
I sighed. "Do you see a goddamn shower anywhere, Kit?" She scowled and rolled her eyes. I swore she did that so much, it always left me wondering how they didn't permanently get stuck backward in her skull. Her phone vibrated on her lap, and she lifted it, sighing heavily at the message on her phone. But it was her douchebag boyfriend. He wasn't much different than her piece of shit dad, but Kit couldn't see the red flags. And the last time I'd mentioned how shitty he was to her, she hadn't talked to me for an entire week. I'd overstepped her boundaries, and she was a fucking stickler for keeping them enforced. The only time she'd allow me to step in was when her first douchebag boyfriend in 9th grade slapped her during one of their many fights. I almost killed him. "Brad?" I asked. I mean, shit, he even had a douchebag name. Kit wasn't the brightest crayon in the box, but she was street smart. She should be able to see his issues from a mile away, but her judgment was clouded by dick. Honestly, I didn't think he'd be all that good in bed, but that was probably my jealousy talking. I wanted inside Kit so fucking badly, but I treasured our friendship more than I wanted to nut inside of her.
"Yep,"
she huffed.
"He needs to change our date night to Friday."
I frowned. "We have a job Friday, Kitty," I reminded her. I glanced at her out the corner of my eye. She was still frowning at her phone. Sighing, I reached over and squeezed her thigh, ignoring the way my dick jumped in my jeans at the feel of her thick thigh beneath my palm. She filled out in middle school, her bony figure turning into curves that every horny bastard like me wanted to sink their teeth into. "Look, if it's that important to you, I can handle it by myself, no biggie. It's nothing but a couple of bars anyway, small order." She frowned at me, finally ripping those soul-sucking dark eyes off her phone.
"You sure?"
I nodded. "I'm sure, Kitty. Enjoy your night with Brad." It just about killed me to utter those words. I wanted him to fuck up, but not at her expense. Never at her expense. She smiled at me, making my heart race in my chest. Her smiles, the real ones, were rare these days.
"Thanks, weirdo."
I snorted. She quickly typed out her message to Brad, and I angled my truck in front of the dumpsters to get rid of the fish buckets. An officer slowed down as I was getting ready to get back into my truck, and I sighed, taking my handle off the door handle. Wasn't getting out of this one. He'd already seen me. Every cop in town knew me and Kit by our first names. I wasn't sure if there was a vehicle of theirs I hadn't been in the back of yet. Kit got arrested much less frequently than I did, but it was mostly because I always warped the story, so it fell on me. It worked most of the time, but there were some officers who always managed to call me on my bullshit. "Where the hell you going, Fletcher?" the sheriff asked me, rolling down his window. "School is still in session, boy." I shrugged. "Needed the air. I'm on the way back now," I told him with a wave. He narrowed his eyes at me. "Get back to school. That goes for Kit, too," he warned me. I nodded once, gritting my teeth. Fucking hated he was calling her out, too. I was overprotective as fuck of her, and everyone in this damn town knew it. "Understood." He pulled off as I got into my truck. Kit arched a brow at me.
"Everything good?"
I nodded, backing the truck up onto the highway and heading back to school. Sheriff's riding my ass. Kit snorted.
"Nothing new."
Nope, nothing fucking new.
Chapter 3. From Friends to Lovers. Dax.
I snatched my keys off the counter off my tiny studio apartment before double-checking I had everything I needed. Address, in my pocket. Pistol, inside my hoodie pocket. I checked my phone before leaving. We never took our regular phones with us, only a burner. If we took our regular phones, we faced the risk of being tracked, and I was not going to fucking prison over this shit. I'd do anything in the world for Kit, which is why I did this, but I wasn't keen on having my freedom taken away. Kitty.
"Be safe. Let me know when you're home."
Will do. I turned my phone off after texting her back and set it on the small-ass counter before heading out of the apartment. After locking the door behind me, I jogged down the stairs and out to my truck. This should have been one of mine and Kit's last deliveries. Graduation would be here in 2 days, and that was the last day for us. Per the arrangement, we had to take over for her dad once he got arrested. I had no doubt the big boss would try to get one more out of us on graduation night, though. But it was either this, or they do something much worse to Kit. And like, fuck, was I allowing that? I blew out a soft breath and turned onto the street. Today had been a good day. Kit and I had even gotten away with just attention after the principal found all the fish in his car. He hated us something fierce, but even I could tell he was a bit surprised by the prank. Guess no one had ever done something that drastic to him before for their senior prank. Probably helped we did it with only 2 days of school left, too. No point in suspending us. What could I say? I was one of a kind. And Kit, she was my hot as fuck little sidekick.
"How did it go?"
Kit asked me when I called her around midnight that night. I pulled my hoodie over my head. "Fine," I assured her. She worried when I did shit like this by myself. It was the usual. "How did your date go?" It took everything in me to keep the bitterness out of my tone. I really hated Brad the douchebag. She groaned.
"He cut it short because of a fucking party."
I barely resisted the snorting. I wasn't surprised. He had one of the hottest fucking girls in school at his beck and call, and he was constantly ditching her and rearranging their plans to chase his next high or drink. Fucker was going to be an alcoholic and drug addict before long, and I hoped she got rid of him before then. I didn't want to have to step between her and another one of her boyfriends again, though I would if I needed to. Hopefully, Kit dumped him before it came to that. I yawned and scrubbed my hand down my face.
"I'm glad you made it home safely, weirdo,"
she told me.
"Get some rest. I'll see you in the morning."
"You need a ride?" I asked her. Once upon a time, I never had to ask her, but then douchebag Brad started dating her. I always checked after they'd been on a date. He liked to pretend they were a perfect couple for 2 or 3 days before he went back to his asshole tendencies.
"Probably."
Her voice trailed off.
"You know what? Yeah, pick me up. Last time I relied on him for a ride after a party, he forgot."
That time, I couldn't help but snort. She groaned through the line. "I'll be there at 7:30, I told her. "See you in the morning, kitty." I hung up the phone and crashed face first into my bed, not even bothering to take my boots off. I was fucking exhausted. It was too goddamn late at night, and I still had to get up early for fucking school. Fuck, I groaned when I realized I forgot to tell her about our next drop. Just like I predicted, on grad night, we had to do our last drop. "I'll tell her in the morning," I mumbled, sleep already pulling at my limbs.
"Are you fucking serious?"
Kit exploded when I broke the news to her the next morning.
I'm so fucking sick of this shit. I knew he was going to pull this.
I shrugged. Last one, I reminded her. I tried to look on the bright side of the situation we were in. Otherwise, it would drag both of us down. She huffed.
Fine. I guess it's a good thing we weren't planning on going to a fucking party or anything.
She and I avoided parties like they were the plague. We didn't like people enough to endure one. While most teens our age wanted the full high school experience, we sure as hell didn't want any part of that. Besides, we weren't most teens. I'd been on my own since I turned 18 over the summer before our senior year, and Kit had been on her own for 3 months now. Thankfully, her parents' house was paid off, so she didn't have to move and figure shit out for herself like I'd had to. I never wanted to have her go through that. It had been stressful as fuck. Cheer up, kitty. She cut me the side eye. It made her look condescending too, but it never bothered me.
Did you just tell me to cheer up, you unemotional freak?
I barked out a laugh. Fuck you, kitty. She rolled her eyes.
Eat dick, weirdo.
This fucking girl.
Well, we fucking did it, weirdo,
Kit said, lifting her bottle of vodka to my bottle of Jack. And so we did, I agreed, clinking my bottle to hers. We'd walked across that stage, grabbed our diplomas, and dipped, not even bothering to stay for the entire ceremony. Sure, administrators had tried to stop us, but what reason do we have to stick around? It wasn't like we had family watching. We had no friends apart from each other. We got what we needed, and we fucking left. In 4 hours, I had to leave to take care of this last delivery. I told Kit I'd take this one too. It was just another small order and shouldn't take me long. Besides, I knew how much she hated doing this. It didn't bother me much either way, and the money was decent. I knew she stressed out about it way more than I did. And then again, her life was literally hanging in the balance if something went wrong. The big boss might not kill her physically, but if he did what he wanted with her, there'd be nothing left of her mentally and emotionally, and I wasn't fucking losing her.
So what now?
She asked me. I knew what she meant. She wanted to know where we went from here. She'd only gotten accepted to local colleges since her grades weren't that great, despite me tutoring her. School just wasn't Kit's thing, and because I refused to leave her alone, I'd left offers on the table, waiting to make a commitment somewhere before I could convince her to come with me. After all, we were the only people each other had. I shrugged. You tell me, Kit. She narrowed her eyes at me, already a bit drunk. It never took her long, especially not on 100 proof vodka.
What the fuck is that supposed to mean, weirdo?
I sighed. I haven't made a decision on my future because you won't come with me, Kit. So you tell me what our future is going to be. Are we going to remain here, or are we going to be moving? She scoffed.
Shouldn't you be basing your future around your daughter?
I scowled at her. Paisley is always on my goddamn mind, Kit, but she has a mother, and as far as I knew, Erica was planning to keep her. I'll come to visit her, just like I'm supposed to, and I'll still provide for her, but you and me, we're family. So, what are we doing? She drunkenly stumbled to her feet, and I quickly caught her when she tripped and began to fall over. The weight of her crashing down on me knocked me back onto the ground. I had no fucking clue how it happened, but one moment, she was staring at me with those dark, soul-sucking eyes, her vodka spilling all over my shirt. And the next, my tongue was in her mouth, her ass clenched in my hands. She moaned into my mouth, her tongue sliding with mine. I licked into her mouth, eager to learn every fucking corner. And fuck, when she moaned again, I thrust up against her, letting her feel just how badly I wanted her. I'd wanted her since 8th grade, and shit if I was going to let this opportunity slip through my fingers. I'd deal with the consequences after this was all said and done. I was finally getting a taste of her, and I was addicted. Quickly, I flipped us so she was on her back. I pried her vodka bottle from her fingers and tossed it aside before yanking my soaked shirt over my head. I smelled like I bathed in vodka, but I didn't care, and I knew she wouldn't either. Fuck, I hissed when she leaned up on her elbows, her tongue sliding over my chest so she could lick up the taste of vodka off my skin. It was the hottest fucking thing I have ever experienced, and my cock leaked in my jeans. If she didn't stop, I was going to come in my jeans, and that was going to be downright embarrassing. Not to mention, it would only piss me off. I wanted to come inside of her. Wrapping my hand around her throat, I pushed her back flat onto her back and thrust my tongue back into her hot, warm mouth. She groaned, sucking on my tongue before releasing it, allowing me to control her. I fucking need you naked, I hissed, leaning up and releasing her throat. With no shame at all, she ripped her shirt over her head before arching her back to reach beneath her. Her bra came off a moment later. Then she flicked her eyes to her jeans. With a groan, I unfastened the button and yanked them down with her panties, tossing them aside. Then I leaned up on my knees to run my eyes over her, drinking her in and imprinting this moment into my memory. Fuck. She was beautiful. Her tits were the perfect handful, her nipples pebbled in the night air. Her waist curved in before flaring out to wider hips, and her belly was soft, perfect for cuddling and using as a pillow. And those thighs, shit, those thick thighs. God damn, I growled. Leaning down, I wrapped my lips around one of her tight buds, sucking it into my mouth before lashing my tongue over it. She whimpered and wrapped her soft thighs around my hips. I hissed when she pressed her soaked, bare pussy to the front of my jeans, where my dick was straining to be freed, grinding against me. Shit. I need you inside of me, she panted. Please, Dax. Fuck. The way my name sounded in her sinful fucking lips. That one sound would wreck me for the rest of my goddamn life. It would haunt me in my dreams and save me in my nightmares. I just fucking knew it. I thrust against her, leaning up to look down at her flushed face. That what you want, kitty? I rasped. I thrust again, loving the porn-worthy sounds falling from her mouth. You want my dick? Yes, she panted. Fuck me, please, Dax. I unfastened my belt with one hand and managed to get the button and zipper of my jeans undone. I groaned when I grasped my cock and pulled it out of my boxers, tightening my fingers around the base of it to stave off my impending orgasm. If I didn't, I'd come inside of her in 2 seconds flat. Kit fucking whimpered when she saw my cock and shamelessly spread her legs for me, letting me see every bit of her pretty pink pussy. And fuck, it was a pretty one. I slid my fingers between her folds, checking to make sure she was slick enough as I sheathed the condom with my other hand. You ready for me, kitty? My fingers were so fucking wet. Of course you are, I praised. Now, she begged, writhing beneath me. I leaned over her. She leaned up and pressed her swollen lips to mine, opening them to invite me inside. I began to tongue fuck her mouth the same way I planned to fuck into her cunt. When I slid inside of her, we both had to stop to savor the feeling. She was moaning, her chest heaving, her fingers digging into my back. I groaned, burying my face in the curve of her neck. Tight. Wet. So fucking wet. And so much fucking heat. Shit, I hissed. Oh fuck, kitty. So full, she whimpered. I kissed her again and pulled her back before thrusting back inside of her, fucking her hard and fast, not even giving a shit that we were sliding off the blanket and onto the dirt. Nothing mattered except her hot, sweaty body, those erotic sounds spilling from her throat and into my mouth. She screamed when she came, her pussy strangling my cock. With a shout of her name, I spilled inside of her, my hips jerking, my mind blinking. My vision went so hazy I could barely make out her beautiful features. Fuck, I panted, my arms shaking with the effort it took not just to drop on top of her. Holy fucking shit. She nodded, too breathless to get any words out of her mouth. That was the best fucking sex I'd had in my life.
Chapter 4. The End of the Beginning. Dax.
Kit was asleep by the time I got her home, and I had to carry her inside of her house to put her to bed. She barely even stirred when I lifted her out of my truck. She was worn, slapped the fuck out after that intense orgasm. And honestly, I was too. But I had to do this last drop. If I backed out, she was no longer off limits, and like hell was that happening. I'd never let anyone touch her. Night, kitty, I whispered, pulling the blankets over her. I would love to do nothing more than crawl in bed beside her, take a quick nap, and then wake her up by sliding inside of her again. But this couldn't wait. Her freedom rode on this job. After I slipped back out of her house, I used my key to lock her door before getting back in my truck. I knew a locked door would never keep anyone out, but the sound of someone breaking in if they wanted to would give her a fighting chance. She and I had agreed on that after we found out she'd been thrown into a sex trafficking ring if we didn't do this. I just hoped that, come morning, everything would still be okay between us. Yeah, some things would be different. No one had sex that fucking great and just went back to normal. But I couldn't lose Kit. She was the only family I had. I'd love nothing more than to be more with her, but I'd take whatever she would be willing to give me, even if it meant we were only friends who had fucked once for the rest of our lives. I blew out a harsh breath and pulled onto the quiet street, heading to the pickup location. It was a different location than normal, but I never questioned what the big boss ordered. Besides, it wasn't like I hadn't been to the location before. It just wasn't normally used. I'd have questioned it, but the best thing to do was just follow the orders given. The big boss didn't pay us to think. He paid us just to get the fucking job done. There was no one standing at the gate to guard it when I pulled up 30 minutes later. I frowned, a bad feeling settling in my gut. These gates were never left unguarded. There was too much inside to protect from outsiders. So what the fuck was going on? I moved to grab my burner from my pocket when a light suddenly shone in the windshield. I cursed, lifting my hand to shield my eyes. Cops. The lot was crawling with cops. Fuck. My palms began to sweat. This wasn't fucking happening. And it was the last fucking drop. The last. I had a fucking baby on the way. Kit needed me. God damn it. Step out of the vehicle with your hands above your head, an officer shouted. Now, Dax. I drew in a deep breath and slowly pushed open my truck door before getting out, my hands above my head. 2 officers had their service weapons aimed at me, and 2 more stepped forward to pat me down. Then, another fucking officer yanked my arms behind my back, clamping cuffs around my wrist. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay silent. I would not do a goddamn thing to incriminate myself further, or accidentally incriminate Kit. Dax Fletcher, you are under arrest for drug trafficking. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. I let the officer lead me over to the back of one of the cruisers. Once I was seated, the sheriff strolled over, his hands on his hips, looking mighty damn proud of himself. I arched a brow at him, appearing unbothered, even though I was stewing inside. You can thank your little best friend Kit for the information. Guess she got tired of you, boy. My face fell. Shock resonated within me. I couldn't stop it from popping onto my features. Kit ratted on me? Even while knowing I was doing this for her? Because I cared too much about her to let her fall victim to sex trafficking? I clenched my jaw as the sheriff patted the roof of the car with a smile on his face before shutting the door and locking me inside. I clenched my jaw, fury burning deep inside my veins at her betrayal. You'll fucking pay for this, Kit Ripley. I'm going to fucking destroy you.